Hi, I'm Christopher Donoso, speech therapist, voice enthusiast, and your host of Tell Me About It. This is the podcast all about your voice, how we use it, how we find it, and what it means to us. I'll be talking with pros, creatives, and entrepreneurs about the messy, honest, behind-the-scenes stuff that doesn't always make it to the textbooks. Got something to say? Tell me about it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tell Me About It. My name is Christopher Donoso. I am a speech language pathologist and voice therapist. And on today's episode, we're going to dive a little bit more into kind of a soapbox of mine. As you guys know, and as I've just said, I am a voice therapist. And my journey into being a voice therapist has not been smooth. Still isn't smooth, but it's definitely getting there. And I think one of the issues that I keep running into, or something that I keep hearing, is that voice therapy is very niche. And niche meaning that it's very small. There's not a lot of therapists that offer that type of service. There's not a lot of people who tend to seek that service, or if they do, they're more specialized or professional in that field of voice. And I don't think that should be true. I don't think voice therapy should be niche, especially because we all use our voices. We all have voices that we use on a daily basis in one way or another. Some people use their voices more than others, more frequently. Some people use it not as frequently, but maybe they have to use it like with a certain amount of force and energy when they do use it. So I think that because of those reasons, I don't understand why voice therapy is niche. I think it should be kind of seen similarly to that of physical therapy, where yes, if you have a major injury or issue with your body, you first go see a doctor and then you see a physical therapist. But then there are even times where you start to feel pain and you kind of just forego seeing the therapist, the doctor, and you go straight to a physical therapist. Sometimes, depending on your case, not always. But yeah, so everyone uses their voices pretty much on a daily basis, and yet very little people really know that voice therapy exists, which I think is kind of crazy. And it's not just for singers, performers, or even people who are trying to like modify their voices. It's for people who are kind of just using their voices a little too much, sometimes a little bit not with the right technique. So I think some people get the misconception that when you start therapy of almost any sort, that it's kind of a big commitment that you have to do for a long time. But with voice therapy, if it's something that you're noticing early on and you catch it early on, you can start services fairly quickly and then learn what to do and then make sure that things are stable, and then you're kind of off of it. I have some clients who are very minimal vocal issues, and we kind of see each other for like a month and a half, maybe once a week. And then they know what they need to know, and then they just check in. We have like a check-in every once in a while to make sure things are running smoothly. And eventually they'll also check in with their ENT to make sure that visibly, using a scope, everything's okay. But yeah, you don't really have to have nodules, vocal nodules. For those of you who don't know what vocal nodules are little like growths on your vocal folds, almost like calluses from just overuse of the vocal folds. And it's not just for singers or performers, it's for everyday people. And I think the issue that we also start to run into is that insurance doesn't always cover it. Or if it does cover it, we kind of have to really fight with them, I guess, or really try and convince them that it's something that we need to do, which I think is crazy, because if a client is unable to speak or is slowly losing their voice, a conversation over the phone for insurance isn't even going to happen. It's like, if you think of it at that essence, to have that conversation, to request for voice therapy can't happen if you don't have a voice on both ends. Isn't that crazy? Those are the weird things I like to think of. So we use the term in our field of work called vocal athletes. When we think about an athlete, we think about someone who is on a football team, basketball player, soccer player, tennis, gymnastics. Those are physical athletes. Now, we think of them to the extreme sometimes as Olympians, but then we also think of it like personal trainers. Sometimes we can consider those types of people athletes. Even if you think of it like construction workers, they're athletes in a sense as well. Like they're picking up very heavy tools and utilizing difficult machinery with their body weight. So in a similar sense, we have vocal athletes. We have the very extreme like Olympians, which could be Broadway singers, opera singers, people who are performing at a high caliber. And then we have the day-to-day athletes that can be teachers, fitness instructors, therapists. They can be salespeople, people who are using their voices a lot on a day-to-day basis. Even parents, honestly, especially if their kids are not the most well-behaved, can be considered vocal athletes. So aside from using it for work, we use our voices to talk to our friends over the phone, have a Zoom meeting with our colleagues, playing video games, streaming. All those things are things that we use our voices for. Even like just singing in the shower, something that I end up doing a lot. So when we start to have vocal issues, that kind of looks like feeling tired or sore around our throat. Yeah, just feeling tired or sore, being a little hoarse. So like having a hard time like projecting your voice and it's just feeling kind of strained. A lot of like throat clearing, always like feeling there's something stuck in your throat. And then sometimes having like some really drastic pitch changes, either very high pitch changes or low pitch changes. Especially drastic can, like from one moment to the next, can be very scary. But there's also gradual changes. So if you feel like my voice didn't used to sound like this a couple years ago, you might want to look into things. And if your voice didn't sound like this yesterday or a week ago, then you really want to get some things checked out. So with me, I can't say that I've had a vocal pathology, but I did have a lot of instances where I kind of didn't really use my voice and didn't realize the power that I had with my voice. I think when I was younger, I was very shy, very timid, and very afraid to speak up. And there was a day when I was in high school and we took a school bus to and from school, and it picked us up and stopped us off at our particular stop. And there was a day where my bus driver was taking us back to our stops and she missed my stop. And I was in my head, I was just thinking of any and every reason as to why she missed my stop. I was in complete denial. I was like, I won't have to say anything. They're probably told her to push the stop up 1 block or something's going on, so she's gonna go to the next stop. Mind you, she said absolutely nothing to me or anyone else. She just kept going. Block passes, no stop. 2, 3, 4, and she still hasn't stopped. And I remember having this like internal fight, I guess, to be like, come on, you gotta say something. You gotta tell her she missed her stop. And it took me a while. And finally, it got to the point where it's like, wow, I'm gonna have to walk very far to get home because of how long this is taking me. And I kind of just very shyly and timidly been like, hey, excuse me, you missed my stop. And she's like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? I can turn around and take you back. And I was like, no. Not like, I didn't want any more conflict, even though she was not being mean or by any means. I just wanted to get off wherever I was and then walk back. And she let me off. And it was about 25-minute walk back to my house, which would have been like not even 10 minutes if I had spoken up as soon as I noticed she missed my stop. And from that moment on, I started to realize that like I need to speak up even in moments that are very uncomfortable for me. So yeah, I learned that I need to start using my voice, especially during moments of discomfort, whether it's I'm feeling uncomfortable and I need to say something to relieve that discomfort, or if I really do need to say something, but I'm afraid of causing someone else discomfort. Being a supervisor with students is sometimes those moments where I find it very difficult for myself to kind of point out some issues, and that is still an area of challenge for me, but something that I find myself getting slowly better and better as I gain more experience in that area of work. And then I guess also just like learning, the more and more I do what I do, the more I start to notice the changes I'm making in people's lives, hearing the changes that I'm making in like their voices, and starting to feel that confidence in what I have to say to someone. Early on in my career, and especially I feel like any other speech therapists that are listening to this know that we go through a lot of, what's that word? Ah, I'm blanking out. Imposter syndrome. We all go through a lot of syndrome, not just in speech therapy, but in any field of work, especially. And we go through such rigorous school and studies to get to where we are, and we still don't really believe in our knowledge and abilities to work with people. And that I went through that as well. It took me years really to kind of get over some of my imposter syndrome. I know I still have some in some aspects of my life and work, but it's starting to slowly get to the point where I'm feeling more confident and more assured of what I have to say to people and the methods that I do with them. However, I do always think that there's room for growth. That's something that I say because I feel like if we have the idea that we know everything and there's nothing left for us to know, then there's no reason for you to be in that field anymore. So I always go back to basics sometimes. I always look at different little webinars, or I go to conferences, and even if it's something that I'm pretty sure I already know, I like to go because sometimes I'm going to learn something that I actually didn't know. And that actually happened recently when I went to the conference in Tampa, Florida for the Bridge to AI. I went to a little separate seminar on scoping, and not that I know how to scope. I know a good amount about scoping, and I know what it is. I know what we're looking for. So I was like, there's probably nothing new that I'm going to learn there, but I'm going to go anyway, just because I actually enjoy watching scopes happen. And I was able to connect with the therapist, and she actually told me some good information on stuff that like I didn't know that I'm able to apply into my work now, which is awesome. So with that, our voices are very important, and kind of tying it all the way back. I kind of went on a completely separate tangent. Tying it all back, our voices are very important, not just for what we say and the importance of the things that we're saying and how that can actually shape the world around us, but also just actually having it. We can't really make those changes if our voices are damaged. But then the other thing that I'm noticing more and more within my field of work is just how inaccessible it is sometimes. So yes, there's that piece of voice therapy where not a lot of people know it exists, and not a lot of people are in the field of voice. So there's just not a lot of, first, there's not a lot of it offered, and then not a lot of people who really are looking for it. But then on top of that, when someone does need it and is looking for it, it is very difficult for them to actually gain the service, not just from finding it, but even just having it covered through their insurance. And if it's not through insurance, then they're going to have to pay out of pocket, and it's a pretty penny. And that's not always easy for people to actually be able to do. So voice therapy is not just for people who are slowly losing their voices or just getting some damage. There's an aspect of it that I actually am very grateful to be able to work in, is that changes people's lives, which is gender affirming voice. I've worked with so many amazing people, trans and non-binary people specifically, who are going through these changes, and I'm able to kind of guide them to get much closer to a voice that aligns with their gender identity. And I can't tell you that how grateful I am to work with some of these people, because I see some of the changes that I've made in their lives, and they're also one of the few people that are the most grateful for being able to work with me, which I don't always see in some of my clients, but I see so much in my gender affirming voice clients. And just as I've been so grateful to be able to make changes in their lives, I feel like they've all, in one shape or form, have made changes in my life and made changes in how I approach new clients, how I approach my therapeutic intervention, and how I just kind of do things in the world. Like how I take a lot of different things for granted, in just the sense of like wearing what I want to wear and not really giving a damn about it. Walking outside and not really getting looks, feeling safe, just going outside and getting groceries. So I know some of these people who I've worked with, like that's not the reality for them, and they've taught me a lot, just from working with me. And I'm grateful for them to, one, have trusted me in help guide them to a voice that is they're more comfortable with, but then also grateful for the things they've taught me just inadvertently, just from them telling me about themselves and their lives and daily struggles. I mean, every time I have a session with someone, I kind of always start off like, how was your week? What are you up to? Anything fun? And then I always end it in like what they plan on doing over the weekend, and if any fun plans are coming up. So I always like to get a little bit of a sneak peek into all of my clients' lives and just to stay connected with them. But I kind of want to throw this back to all of my listeners and really encourage you to think about your own voice. Think about not just how you use your voice to shape the world around you, to shape your career, to make changes in your families and friends, but also think about your voice physically, how it sounds, how it feels, how it sounds in the morning versus the afternoon versus night, how it sounds after a concert, a club, karaoke. Take more time to tune into your voice and acknowledge that it's there. And if that's all you take from this episode or this podcast, I think I've done my job as a voice therapist, especially, because I want people to just know that their voices are meaningful things in their lives, and you don't really know how meaningful it is until you kind of lose it. And that's the thing that I notice the most in a lot of my clients. If you start to notice changes in your voice, if you start to feel excessive fatigue and you're noticing it's harder and harder for you to speak, seek out some help. Go to your primary care provider, go to an ENT, an otolaryngologist, get scoped. They'll literally put a camera down your nose or throat to get an idea of what's going on for your voice. And then if everything's fine, awesome. But if you need voice therapy, look for people in your area that offer voice therapy. I myself, obviously, am a voice therapist here in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. I offer telehealth therapy. So you could always find me at cdspeech.com, CD Christopher Donoso Speech, whatido.com. You can book a free consultation, 15 minutes. We can just chit chat, see if I'm the right fit for you, and see if voice therapy is actually something that you may need. I've run into clients that we've spoken and it's like, okay, I don't think it's really a voice problem. Maybe we can direct you to something else that might be more beneficial. And then other times where it's like, yep, we need some voice therapy. Let's get started. So that is it for today. That is me kind of getting off my random tangents and my soapbox on voice therapy and why it really shouldn't be as niche as it is today, and how I think we kind of need more of it. More education on it so more people can get into the field of it, and more education on it so people know that it's something that they can actually get and access. So with that being said, thank you everybody for tuning in to tell me about it. Have a good one. Bye.